The woman who was shot dead in Copper's Cove yesterday in the afternoon is when this took place. Police identified her as 33-year-old Destiney Carey.
Carey was a clean business owner and a mother of 6. Understandably, her family is devastated. Now, police were responding to a 911 hang-up call on Hobby Road just behind Copper's Cove Park yesterday. When officers arrived, they found her and 37-year-old Kevin Frazier. Both had been shot. Frazier is still in the hospital. Carey's daughter tells us the two had a relationship.
It started with silence. Not a scream, not a cry for help, just a 911 call that ended before it began. At 12:25 p.m., the line went dead. The dispatcher tried to call back, twice. No answer. The system logged it as routine. Nothing urgent yet. But behind that quiet click, a mother's life was ending. When officers arrived at 1000 Hobby Road in Copper's Cove, Texas, the house looked ordinary, one of those calm, sunlit homes where nothing terrible ever happens. The curtains were half drawn. The front door unlocked. Everything still. Then came the smell, metallic, sharp, unmistakable. Gunfire. They found her in the living room. Destiney Jassmund Carey. 33 years old. A mother of 6. Still wearing the clothes she'd been running errands in. No movement. No pulse. Just the hollow quiet that fills a room when love has been replaced by violence. Beside her lay a man, Kevin Frazier, 37, barely conscious, a gun on the floor. Two people once bound by affection now joined by destruction. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene. She never made it to the hospital. Never got to explain what happened. Never got to hear her children's voices one last time. Outside, the neighbors stood frozen. Police tape fluttered in the wind. Reporters began to gather, notebooks ready. To them, it was another story, another headline. To 6 children, it was the end of the world. The youngest was still in diapers. The oldest had just begun to understand how fragile love could be. And in that moment, in the gap between the hang-up and the sirens, a family's history divided itself into before and after. They would later call it domestic violence, as if those words could contain the horror. But what happened in that house was simpler, crueler. It was jealousy with a gun. It was love, twisted into control. It was the sound of a man deciding that if she wouldn't be his, she wouldn't be anyone's. By the time the coroner took her away, the house had grown unbearably quiet again. No more shouting. No more pleading. Just that heavy, suffocating stillness. And the dispatcher, somewhere across town, replayed that 911 call, wondering if she could have done something different, wondering how many times silence has meant death. Her name was Destiney Carey. She was more than a case number, more than another line in a report. She was a woman who loved her children, who believed she'd make it through one more day. But on that April afternoon, she never did. Before her name became a headline, Destiney Jassmund Carey was just a woman trying to live. She wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. She was ordinary in the most extraordinary way, a mother of 6 who made love stretch further than her paycheck ever could. Her morning started before sunrise. She'd pack lunches, fix hair, find missing shoes, and kiss foreheads still warm from sleep. The kind of chaos that felt like peace when it was hers. She worked hard, not for recognition, but for stability. A steady job, a roof over her children's heads, and the promise that no matter how rough life got, they would have her. Neighbors remember her laugh, loud, full, unfiltered. She had the kind of joy that made people want to be near her. Even when she was tired, she smiled through it. Because that's what mothers do, they hold the world together even when their own world is quietly falling apart. But behind that warmth lived exhaustion, and behind exhaustion, something darker, a quiet fear that grew each time her phone lit up with his name. Kevin Frazier wasn't always a storm. He was charming, attentive, the kind of man who said all the right things when love was new. He told her she was beautiful when she didn't believe it. Told her she was strong when she was breaking. He gave her hope, and then he used it to trap her. Jealousy came slowly. A question here. A demand there. A temper that flared too easily, followed by apologies that sounded practiced. Friends say she began to change. She stopped going out. Spoke less. Smiled differently. The light that used to pour out of her was dimming, and no one knew how to ask why. But even in the quiet of fear, she loved her children fiercely. She braided their hair. Helped with homework. Held them close when arguments turned to shouting in the next room. She was trying to protect them, and herself, the only way she knew how, by enduring. She believed he'd get better. She believed love could still fix what was cracking. But love doesn't cure control. It feeds it. And so she carried on, cooking dinner, saying prayers, posting photos that looked happy because the truth was too heavy to share. A life full of noise and color and laughter, quietly bleeding into something no one wanted to name. Until one day, it ended, too suddenly, too violently, in a room that once held every dream she had left. Destiney Carey deserved more than a headline. She deserved tomorrow. His name was Kevin Frazier. And like most men who destroy what they claim to love, he didn't begin as a monster. When he met Destiney Carey, he was gentle, the kind of man who opened doors, sent long messages, and called her beautiful when she wasn't expecting it. He listened to her stories about her children, nodded at her exhaustion, and said he admired her strength. He made her feel seen in a world that often looked right through women like her. But affection soon became surveillance. He wanted to know where she was, who she spoke to, when she came home, why she didn't answer. His love became a map that only he was allowed to read. At first, she excused it. She said he'd been hurt before, that he just needed reassurance. But reassurance turned into obedience. And obedience turned into fear. He began showing up uninvited. He'd call dozens of times a day. When she didn't answer, he'd accuse her. When she did, he'd still find fault. It's how control works, not as a sudden explosion, but as erosion. One boundary at a time. Friends noticed. They said her voice had changed. It was softer now, careful. As if every word might spark something she couldn't put out. She brushed off their concern. She said, "He's just passionate." But passion doesn't track your movements. It doesn't isolate you from family. It doesn't call your love a debt to be repaid with obedience. What he called love was hunger, the kind that devours until nothing remains. And by the time she saw what he was becoming, it was too late to escape without bleeding. In those final weeks, she told a friend she was thinking about leaving. She said she couldn't take the arguments anymore. She said she was tired. But tired women often die trying to rest. And Kevin Frazier, the man who said he couldn't live without her, decided he wouldn't. Not without taking her with him. Love had turned into a cage. And she had no key left to turn. It was a Thursday. The kind of day no one remembers, ordinary, bright, forgettable. Destiney Carey was at home on Hobby Road, a quiet street in Copperas Cove, Texas. The morning had passed softly, laundry folded, breakfast dishes still drying by the sink, the hum of a life that should have gone on. No one knows exactly what words were said before the first shot. Only that they were alone. And that love had already turned into something sharp. At 12:25 p.m., a 911 call came in, then hung up. No words, no sound, just silence. The dispatcher tried twice to call back. Nothing. When police arrived, the air smelled of gunpowder and something heavier, the weight of loss settling in too soon. The door was ajar. The home still. They found her first. 33 years old. Mother of 6. Her body still warm, her face peaceful in a way that felt wrong. Beside her was Kevin Frazier, bleeding but alive. The gun lay near his hand. It looked like an ending he had written himself, but only half finished. Paramedics tried. It didn't matter. She was gone before anyone could speak her name aloud. Outside, sunlight poured across the street as neighbors gathered behind yellow tape. Some cried, some just stared. In their eyes was the same disbelief, that something this final could happen in the middle of a calm afternoon. Her children weren't there. They didn't see the flashing lights, the officers walking slowly through their home. But later, they would learn in fragments, whispers, phone calls, the trembling hands of relatives who didn't know how to say your mother is gone. And somewhere, a dispatcher sat with the weight of that single, empty call, a line that went quiet too soon, carrying a woman's last breath into the silence. That was how her story ended, not with shouting, but with the kind of stillness that comes after too much pain.
Injured in the same house a Copper's Cove woman was found dead in has been arrested himself in connection to the case. 37-year-old Kevin Frazier is charged with murder and aggravated assault. On April the 7th, police in Copper's Cove responded to a home on Hobby Road after someone from the residence called 911 and then hung up. When they got there, they found 33-year-old Destiney Carey dead from a gunshot wound. Frazier was also suffering from a gunshot wound but survived. After an investigation, police have now charged Frazier with Carey's death. He's in the Coryell County Jail tonight with a bond of $1.7 million.
Love had become violence. Home had become a grave. And an ordinary Thursday had become the day 6 children lost their mother forever. When the sirens stopped, the silence stayed. It crept through the house, clung to the curtains, settled in the corners where her children's laughter used to echo. News vans came before the family could. Flashing lights painted the walls blue and red, as if color could explain the chaos. Neighbors stood at their windows, whispering names that suddenly felt sacred. By evening, her face was already on the local news, a mother of 6 found dead inside her home. They said her name slowly, like a question no one knew how to answer, Destiney Jassmund Carey. Her family arrived hours later. They weren't allowed inside. Police tape blocked the doorway, thin as ribbon but heavy as iron. Behind it lay the last pieces of her, shoes by the couch, a half-folded blanket, a phone that would never ring again. 6 children waited for answers that would never make sense. The youngest asked if mommy was sleeping. The oldest already knew. That night, the house was dark. Toys untouched. Clothes still in the dryer. Dinner plates left on the counter. Everything exactly as she left it, except her. In Copper's Cove, strangers lit candles. Some prayed. Some just stood quietly, staring at the photos, her smile, her kids, her ordinary joy. The kind of images that break you more because they look so normal. But grief isn't loud. It's the hum of an empty refrigerator. The sound of footsteps that don't come. The late-night whisper of a child saying, "Mama," into the dark. And in that silence, her name became something else, a wound that wouldn't close. Destiney Carey was gone. But the world kept spinning, cruelly unaware that for 6 small lives, it had stopped entirely. Jealousy doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in questions that sound like care. Where are you? Who were you with? Why didn't you answer? At first, those words seem harmless. Then they start to tighten, like a rope you didn't notice was around your throat. For Destiney Carey, it began that way. Kevin's voice changing from gentle to sharp. The messages coming faster. The visits unannounced. Every text she didn't reply to became a reason for suspicion. Every smile in public, an accusation waiting to happen later. Control pretends to be love. It tells you it's protection, not possession. It tells you it hurts because it cares. And one day, it tells you, if I can't have you, no one will. Her friend said she used to defend him. Said he was just going through things. That's how many stories like hers begin, with empathy used against the one who gives it. And by the time she saw the pattern, the fear had already become routine. She deleted messages. Hid bruises under makeup. Changed the subject when people asked. She wanted to leave but didn't know how. Because leaving a jealous man doesn't always mean freedom. Sometimes it means danger. And jealousy, the kind that burns slowly, had already turned into rage. You can hear it in the final silence of that 911 call. The sound of a woman trying to reach for help, and the weight of a hand that wouldn't let her. Jealousy sounds like a phone dropped on the floor. Like a breath cut short. Like the world ending in a room too small for mercy. It never sounds like love. But by the time you realize that, it's too late to run. When the sirens stopped echoing down Hobby Road, the story wasn't over. Kevin Frazier was still alive. He'd been found beside her, bleeding, pale, breathing shallowly. He had aimed the gun at her first, then himself, but fate decided it wouldn't let him escape what he'd done. Paramedics took him to Darnall Army Medical Center, hands cuffed even as they saved his life. Doctors stitched what he broke. The law waited at the door. When he woke, the first thing he asked wasn't about her. He wanted to know if he was under arrest. Yes. He was. Charged with murder and aggravated assault against a public servant. $1 million in bond for one, $750,000 for the other. Numbers that mean nothing beside the life he ended. Police reports described the scene as domestic in nature. That phrase, so clinical, so practiced, hides what it really means. A woman killed by someone who once said he loved her. The officers who carried her body out of the house that day had seen it before. Too many times. Too familiar. Another home, another woman, another man who mistook control for devotion. Kevin Frazier never released a statement. No apology. No reason. Just silence, the kind that feels like cowardice pretending to be grief. He will stand trial one day, surrounded by cold walls and sharper questions. But nothing he says will matter. Because her story ended long before the court could begin. And in a small Texas town, 6 children were left to live with the echo of her absence, while the man who took her from them lived to face the slow machinery of justice. Her voice still lingers in the house she left behind. It's faint now. A hum in the quiet, a memory in the walls. The way she called her children's names in the morning. The way she laughed when they fought over the last slice of toast. The way she said, "Be good, I'll be right back." But she never came back. After the police left,
Her daughter tells 6 News, quote, "My mom was a hard-working woman. She took care of all 6 of us. She was a nurse and she had 2 businesses in Killeen and was getting ready to set up her 3rd location in Dallas. My mom always wanted to be happy," end quote. Her daughter tells us her laugh just lit up the room and that she always wanted to help others.
there was no instruction on how to keep living. No guide for how to explain death to children who still believed in bedtime prayers. Her mother sat on the edge of her bed for hours, touching the sheets, as if warmth might still be hiding there. At night, her youngest would wake up crying. He would ask for her, over and over, until sleep took him again. Her oldest stopped speaking for a while, not because he didn't care, but because words felt useless now. They buried her in the kind of ceremony she deserved, simple, filled with love. 6 children stood together, holding hands too small for so much grief. When the pastor said her name, the sky was silent. Even the wind refused to move. Photos began to spread online. Her smile. Her kids. A woman full of life and light. And in the comments, strangers wept for someone they never knew. Because grief recognizes itself. It knows a mother's love when it sees one. And it breaks again every time it's taken too soon. Her friends said she had dreams, to start her own business, to move, to give her kids a better life. But the world she built with her hands was shattered in seconds by the man she trusted most. Now her name is more than a memory. It's a prayer whispered by those who loved her. It's a warning for those still trapped in homes that don't feel safe. And it's a promise, that her voice, though gone, will keep echoing until someone listens. The house on Hobby Road looks quiet now. Fresh paint on the walls. New curtains. New people trying to build new memories. But the floor still remembers. The walls still know. It's strange how a place can hold on to what happened inside it, the way the air feels heavier in one room, the way silence lingers too long after dusk. Every house that has witnessed violence seems to carry its own kind of sorrow. For Destiney Carey, that house was meant to be safety. It was where her children laughed, where birthdays were celebrated, where she dreamed of peace. Instead, it became the place where love turned against her. People drive past now and see nothing. No one knows that this quiet little home once swallowed an entire life, that behind its white walls, a woman begged love to let her go. In the months after her death, the community tried to heal. They held vigils. Lit candles. Wrote her name on posters. But the flames went out, and the posters faded, while the pain stayed the same. Her family says they still feel her presence, not haunting, not ghostly, but gentle. Like she's checking in, making sure her children are okay. Because mothers don't stop caring just because they stop breathing. Her youngest still asks if she's in heaven. Her oldest doesn't ask anymore. He just stares at her photo like he's memorizing the details before the years take them away. The light that once filled that home has dimmed, but it hasn't died. It flickers now, in the laughter of her children, in the tears of her mother, in the quiet prayers whispered by people who never met her but can't forget her. Where her life ended, something else began. A vow that her story wouldn't be buried with her. Because what happened in that house should never happen anywhere. They wake up every morning in a world missing its center. 6 children, trying to grow inside a silence their mother never chose. Some days are easier. There are moments of laughter, the kind that surprises even them, when memory turns soft instead of sharp. But then the ache returns, sudden and heavy, like a door slamming shut in the middle of a dream. Her oldest tries to be strong. He helps the younger ones dress, ties shoes, wipes tears. He's too young to carry that much weight, but no one else knows how. Her youngest still draws pictures of her, simple crayon outlines, yellow hair, a blue dress, always smiling. In his drawings, she's never gone. The family says her spirit lingers in the small things. The smell of her perfume on an old shirt. A song she used to hum. The way sunlight filters through the window at the same time every morning. But grief has no timetable. It doesn't fade, it reshapes. It turns birthdays into memorials, bedtime into prayer. And love into a kind of waiting. Waiting for peace, waiting for understanding, waiting for the day her children can remember her without breaking. The world has already forgotten her name. The headlines are gone. The cameras moved on. But in that small Texas town, 6 lives still bear the mark of one violent choice. They will grow up knowing 2 truths. That their mother loved them beyond measure. And that love, when twisted, can kill. So this story ends not in a courtroom, not in judgment, but in a promise. That we will keep saying her name. That we will remember what silence cost her. That we will stand for the women who can't. Because Destiney Jassmund Carey should still be here. Laughing, working, mothering, living. And though her voice is gone, her love remains. Aching, echoing, unforgotten.